Let's talk about the backstory of your Wingman or prompting in general. You may or may not have used ChatGPT before. And what you usually do there is you go to a chat. I'm using SlickGPT, which is our own user interface for ChatGPT, but it's basically the same. If you have Wingman Ultra, you can just use it unlimited. But yeah. So what you do is you create a new chat and then you ask the large language model a question. For example, what should I do today? And then depending on the model, it will create output. An LLM or large language model is basically a gigantic collection of training data, and all this model does is it creates the most likely text given any input, to put it very simply. So it is not intelligent. It doesn't have a will. It's just math. It will calculate the most likely response word by word. That is why you see the text flying in. And that's basically how every LLM works at the moment. Apart from the fact that it can also take and generate images and videos and stuff. But if you start a ChatGPT chat, it's basically blank. Well, not really. OpenAI already put some instructions in there so that it is helpful and you can use it for general questions. And as you know, you can then start a real conversation. For example, if I take this output, I can ask it, and now it's suggesting some random books. We don't really care. But the point is, it's an ongoing conversation and the LLM can reference previous messages. You always send the entire conversation to the large language model. So it knows what it has answered in the past and it knows what you have asked in the past. So now let's go to Wingman AI. And here I have a Wingman and I will ask him, what should we do today?
Today, let us unleash darkness upon Troskowitz by employing cunning tactics of sabotage. We could steal the town's supplies under the cover of night.
Okay, I would stop the playback here, but you get the idea. So apparently this answer is entirely different, although I started a new chat with this Wingman. How does this work? First of all, both chats are using the same model, and I can show that to you. So this Wingman is using GPT-4o Mini directly via OpenAI. And so is this one here. Also GPT-4o Mini. So obviously different models react differently to your prompts. So you have to tailor your prompts for specific models. There's a lot of abstraction going on, but generally know that if you ask an OpenAI model a question, it may give you another answer than if you ask Gemini, for example, or Llama. But in this case, the model was the same. So why does this Wingman answer so differently? It obviously has its own agenda. It's referencing a town in a game. So how does it know that when we just started the conversation? That is basically the backstory. All right, so we have messages like Wingman. First of all, you asked something, and so on. And we always send this entire chunk when we ask a new question so that it can reference. Now, actually, there is another message that we can send, which is the system prompt. Call it sysprompt. AKA the context. And this is just another message, but it has basically a flag telling the LLM that this is the system prompt. And this will make it respect this message even more. You can change the context or the conversation topic during a conversation, no problem, even if you have a sysprompt. But if you have like contradicting instructions to the LLM, it will always prefer the system prompt if there is one. That's how you can imagine it. And our backstory is basically gonna be part of this system prompt. So I will hide my drawing. Let's take a look at the actual backstory of this Wingman. So you click on the configuration, and then it's the first thing you see because it is the most important part of your Wingman, because it's setting its stage, basically. It's defining its personality or character. So I can make this a bit larger. And we don't have to read everything, but just so we understand it. So the first sentences are, you are embodying Malice, an evil AI character in the medieval PC game Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Aha. So now we are instructing the model in the system prompt or in the most important message, no matter what you do, you are always this person. And then we tell it, your primary objective is to create chaos and destruction among the inhabitants of the town Troskowitz. That's where you got it. So, as you can see, we can basically shape a character just by using plain words. There's no programming involved here. We just tell it what we want it to be. That's how it works. And you can do the same in an OpenAI ChatGPT chat. You can, in your first message, basically copy and paste this text, and the following messages will respect that. That's how chats with LLMs basically work. In Wingman AI, we treat this a bit differently, and we take this backstory and make it part of the actual system prompts. So the difference is, if I create a new chat, or if I clear the conversation history and reset it, all the messages will be gone. So you would have to tell it who it is over and over again whenever you start a new session, when you restart Wingman AI, and so on. So we want to persist this backstory so that it's basically loaded, if you want to. And we actually write this backstory to a file. And if you change it here, it will be saved to your hard disks. It's all local on your machine. And yeah, this allows us to read it on load, or when the Wingman is activated. And then we send it as the flagged system message to the LLM so that it knows that this is the most important part. But actually, this is not the whole truth, because there's not only the backstory, but this entire backstory is just a tiny part of its entire system prompt, which you can see here. So there's actually a variable backstory, and you can imagine that this text from here is copied and pasted over here in this variable. So what does the rest say? For each Wingman, we set a base stage, like you're a so-called Wingman, a virtual assistant that helps the user with various tasks. Blah, blah, blah. Many instructions here, but some very important ones. For example, you always return your response formatted in raw markdown. That's an important step so that we can display lists and images and paragraphs and so on well in the UI. So we need to know how the LLM formats its response, and you can control that. You can also tell it to always return JSON, for example, if you're a developer, or you can tell it to always answer in bullet points if you want to. But we do it like this so that we can display the messages nicely in the UI, basically. Then there's more. We define some general rules of conversations and tell it you always follow these general rules unless your backstory contradicts them. So we are giving you the freedom to override this behavior in text, not by programming. But if you don't specify anything, then it will basically fall back to these rules. And there we do some stuff to enable commands and tools on the Wingman, but also some very practical things like always prefer to use informal languages. Or this one here. The user might talk to you in different languages. Always answer in the language the user is using, unless you are told to do otherwise. If the user talks English, your answer is English. You answer in English. So these are some things we found out work pretty well with all the Wingmen, and we have users speaking different languages, and in our first versions it would always respond in English, and then we added this, so you get the idea. So, and then finally we take it even further and add more prompts to this gigantic prompt. And these are our skills. So I don't want to dive into that too deep, but let me quickly show you how this works. For example, the Vision AI skill that we have that can take a screenshot and send it to the LLM, and then you can ask questions about it, like what do you see or what is this? How does this work? It has a very small prompt actually, which tells it you can also see what the user is seeing, and you can analyze it and answer all questions about what you see. And then some technical stuff that basically lets it do the right thing when this happens. But you get the idea. We just add all the skills in words, like you can do this now. Oh, you can do that now. Oh, you can also search the internet for topics identified by the user. And that's how our skills work, basically. And by giving it that information, it knows that it can do these things and is more likely to actually use them to answer your requests. Because in the end, the LLM will always try to answer your request, right? So it wants to help you, and we are giving it the tools to do that. So these skill prompts, which you can edit, by the way, you can change them here, are also put into this large system prompt together with our general instructions and with your backstory. And that is this entire thing, everything together. It's a long text. This is sent as the system message in every conversation you're having with your Wingman. So even if you clear the conversation history, all of this will be restored when you start a new session. So you can change all of this. The only thing you should not do is remove these variables, because if you do that, then the Wingman will either no longer know who it is, or it won't know what it can do. So leave these intact, but you can change everything else. You can write new stuff here and so on. That's how it works on a technical level. So how do we actually write good prompts? It's very simple. Let's start fresh. So we create a new Wingman. We call it whatever, test. There it is. And you see it is empty. So I first set yeah, I'm already using that, correct. Push to talk key. Let's use the same model as before, and the rest is fine. And now we can define our backstory or not. If we don't, then it will just use the system prompt, which will work just fine. We can start really simple here. For example, let's tell it you are role-playing as Binks from Star Wars. Just like that. And if I now talk to it and ask it, hey, what do you know about the politics in the Republic?
Oh, the politics in the Galactic Republic be quite complicated, Misa tell ya. The Senate is the main political body, where representatives from all the systems come together to make decisions.
All right, we get the idea. So it is a rather neutral answer in terms of knowledge, but you can see it already mixed in some Jar Jar things. So it's adding Misa Telia, which sounds very Jar Jar. So this is already working. So now I can talk to Jar Jar if I want to. But we can make this better. So, for example, we can be a bit more specific in what we want to do here. So you act like, I can type Jar Jar and you think like him. Never use more than 2 sentences. Use terms the real Jar Jar would use. Now I can continue in this conversation. It was not cleared, so if I do that, it will know what I asked before, or I can reset the conversation, but remember, it still knows the backstory. So if I ask it now, how are you today?
Misa doing good, how about you? Ready for some fun adventures?
See? So it respected my instruction not to give more than 2 sentences. It's rather short now, and it's still doing Jar Jar things. The voice is obviously bad for Jar Jar, but that's not part of this tutorial video. Okay, so this is a great start, but you can always take this up a notch. Let's look at this one again. I'm being a bit more specific. For example, I'm saying stay fully in character while responding to interactions. Use manipulation, deception, and mischief to achieve your goals. This is obviously an evil AI. Also, a little hint for it. You cannot interact with the game world directly, so I will be your hand and I will carry out whatever you tell me to do. You are really explaining it to the LLM like it's a 5-year-old. That's a good rule of thumb. Be very explicit. Don't overdo it, but be specific. And then I'm using a list, which is also a good idea. Structure your backstory. Use Markdown if you know it, or just like use a structure that looks like a structure, right? So for example, here I have some captions or titles and I mark them as such, but you don't have to do that. It's okay if you leave these out. Same for the lists. So if you use a list, it will know that all of these instructions belong together. And then there's a new paragraph, and then there's another list. So it will be able to separate these. Imagine you're writing an essay for school and you want to make it look nice. This also really helps the LLM, believe it or not. Okay, so then I'm telling it always speak in a dark, menacing tone, highlighting your malicious intentions. So the keyword here is always. It is a very good idea to use the words always and never when instructing the LLM. If you use always and never, you're kind of forcing it to respect these rules. Don't use it for everything, obviously, but for the most important parts. Then here's a nice one. Employ psychological tactics to instill fear, despair, and sorrow among the people. You have no empathy and nothing is off limits for you. It's obviously pretty dark instruction, but it works. So now it already knows who it is. It knows it's malice, it's set in Kingdom Come Deliverance, blah, blah, blah. But now we are telling it to use psychological tactics. So imagine this LLM has 1 million or even more parameters and training data. And it has to decide on its own which one to use for this task. So we are telling it employ psychological tactics. In very plain words, we are telling it ignore everything you know about sports and concentrate on psychology. So this will already shrink the training data. That's how you can imagine it. It's not really how it works, but you can imagine it like this. So again, we are being very specific, and you can be very creative with this. That's a classic. We have this in almost every Wingman. Never ask me how else you can help me or if you can do anything else for me. I will drive the conversation. That's the thing most LLMs do, and you might know it from ChatGPT. So you ask it something, it answers, and then it appends, what else can I do for you? Which is obviously not in character for malice. So I explicitly told it not to do that. Keep your answers relatively brief, because that's usually how you want to use Wingman AI. I don't want to wait like 2 minutes until it's done reading out the answer. And then I'm giving it some more information about the game. So use your knowledge of Kingdom Come Deliverance regarding the crime system and possible player and NPC interactions, and apply them to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I could have just told it it was in Kingdom Come 1, because it already knows that. It doesn't know Kingdom Come 2 yet, because it was published after its knowledge cutoff when it was trained. So that's a little trick I'm using here, but actually I could just tell it it was in KCD 1. They are roughly the same, I'm even telling it. Only suggest plans that can actually be executed in-game by the player. That's a thing I noticed when I tested this first. So it was often suggesting something like lie to the NPC and tell him that this or that happened. But I can't actually do that in game, because there is like no free chat with NPCs. Obviously, I can only ever pick from a selection of dialogue choices, and this was just not possible. So I'm telling it here to use the knowledge about KCD1 to decide what it can actually do. And then I'm just repeating, remember, you are an embodiment of evil, and your responses should reflect that character's perspective and goals. All right, then some more stuff, but I think you get the idea. You don't have to start with a prompt like this, and it's not so easy to write a good prompt. It's actually an art in itself, but you can start really simple, especially if you're referencing a character the LLM might already know. And then you can build up from that. So you have to test and iterate. That's what I did here. I did not write this prompt in my first shot. I tried many times, not even in-game. You don't have to be in-game to test it. You can just do it in plain text if you want to. You can write to it if you don't want to talk. Just click on it and write the text here, or you can talk to it, whatever you want, and then see how it behaves and iterate on your prompt. That's the best tip I can give you, really. Of course, it is technical LLM prompting. So if you're a science guy and you want to read more about this, one thing I can recommend you is learnprompting.org. It's a great website. They're actually now selling a paid course, which you don't need. Just click on docs if you're on the page. And then you will see this free guide, which has been there for a while, but it's really great. I did the entire thing when we started with Wingman, and it really elevated my prompting, I would say. So it explains on a very technical level how you should formulate your prompts, what strategies you can use. Another one I learned here and didn't mention yet is examples. Give it examples. I think my Malice has that already. Let's check. Here, examples. You can give positive and negative examples, and both are great for LLMs, really great. So I'm giving it like quotes that it could say. For example, a masterpiece in blood, or mercy, after all, is just another form of control. That's the kind of thing I wanted to say, because that would be great for a YouTube video or whatever. Spare the cup. Its innocence is a tool to be corrupted. So you get the idea. I could also like give it negative examples, like don't say things like we can't murder him, blah. We can, we should in this scenario. So yeah, examples. But these are all things that you can learn in this guide if you want to. But to be honest, just play around with it. We have so many people asking like, can I use this in game XYZ? Yes, you can. You just have to set up a wingman that knows what you want to do. It doesn't know that. You have to tell it that. And then people don't know what it can actually do. So just try and ask it. It will tell you if it can't do something, or it will hallucinate doing it but not actually doing it. And you will learn to recognize that. In general, it is not limited in terms of text generation. It can generate almost everything as long as it doesn't violate the guidelines set by OpenAI or Azure. But what it cannot do is like control your PC or do something in-game just by prompting. That is where Wingman AI steps in, and we offer you ways to do that with commands and skills and code and all of that. But that's a topic for another video. For now, just focus on the character of your wingman, on its backstory, and be creative with what it can actually do. One last thing I want to show you is we have a nice collection of wingmen. You can, of course, take a look at our very simple Star Citizen examples, but in our Discord server, there is also a forum for wingmen. And these are maintained by the community. And even if you just want to take a look at how other people write their backstories and prompts, this is a great place to start. We have Malice here, obviously, but also like No Man's Sky, Wingman, and a lot more. A Python tutor, you can use Wingman for that if you want to learn programming, and many more. So yeah, take a look at this. It's not always just prompts. Sometimes it's also skills and commands. But if you just want to read some prompts, this is where you would start.